Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast, is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to the show, folks. Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Tom Clark here with you, along with Joe Higgens and Jay Luft, and we are here for episode number 10. I know what you're thinking. Holy crap. We've only got 2 more until season 2 is done. Can you believe it's went by this fast? Neither can we. We were talking off mic before we started here today about how when we started this little endeavor last year, it was quite toasty outside. Now it's quite toasty inside because it's cold out there. See what I did? It's been a labor of love, kids. Trust me when I tell you that. We're all 3 massive fans of the Ted Lasso show, if you haven't figured that out by now. If you're just jumping on or you found us out of the blue, what's up? Welcome to the show. If you don't know what we're doing, we're reviewing the entire series of Ted Lasso. We kicked off last year. We're churning right along right now. Season 1 is entirely available on our YouTube. Just look us up at Boink Studios on YouTube. Get all the links you need for the podcast you're listening to and watching here today at boinkstudios.com, BOINK studios.com. You'll get show links not only for this here little podcast, but also for my other 2 shows and for the shows these gentlemen you are watching and seeing and listening here to today as well. We can't wait to get started here. Joe, let's kick it off with you. Thoughts going into episode 10?
So, episode 9 was the mad fever dream of Beard's night out in London, which is a unique and brilliant thing all on its own. Episode 10 is the thing that Ted Lasso does so very, very well, of being incredibly funny, but also massively, massively poignant, and then a big old kick in the nuts as well. Like it's a very long, I think it's the first like overly long episode, not overly long, but like feature length, double length episode, because it comes in at just under an hour, I think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But everything in there is brilliant. Like, this feels like the payoff for the entire season. Is a lot of arcs are sort of resolving at this point, but we also find out some very, very interesting things about a lot of the main characters as well. It's, having just rewatched this like an hour before we started this, I've only just stopped crying. Like, it's really one of those just, it's up there with like Jamie's dad making me sad sort of things. Ooh, sorry.
So Jay, to Joe's point about some, maybe not resolutions, but things coming to a point for a lot of the characters and angles of this season. With it being number 10, it's obvious we're saving some things for the last 2, and one character in particular, which we've been slow dancing around it for the entire run of this podcast. But we can all safely talk about it now in the open, Jay, that Nate's storyline is probably going to become the crescendo of this season. So thoughts about that, and also episode 10.
Yeah, I think to kind of like bounce off what Joe was saying there as well, like Ted Lasso's so great at having an episode like Beard After Hours where it's just very lighthearted, very kind of like not too much of a thinker, I guess the best way to put it. And you know it's always setting up because you're either gonna have just come off something that's incredibly like deep and heartfelt, or you're about to go into something that's incredibly deep or heartfelt. And this, I believe, Beard After Hours is sandwich between the two, isn't it? So it's like it's a really nice stop break to kind of get you to this episode where now it's like it instantly hits you with like a massive revelation that like is dropped like a ton of bricks on the entire episode, and then it's like, whoa, okay. Again with like the whole Nate like sort of villain arc thing. This episode and the next one, it's really when like the mask starts to slip. It does a lot of kind of heavy lifting of moving characters along who didn't necessarily feel like they were sort of like just like wading through to get to the next part of the story, but definitely felt like they needed a bit of a sort of like push in the right direction towards like where they're going. This is a really good episode, but a really hard one to watch.
It is hard to watch. And to your point, in terms of Nate, it's the end of number 11 that you're like, okay, that we're done. That's it. I mean, he has fully accepted the dark side. We'll get there. I don't want to get too far ahead, but man, at the end of that, I was sick.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
as you saw in our group chat when I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To kind of compare it to Star Wars, like this episode's like the start of like Revenge of the Sith. The next episode's Order 66, and the end of episode 12 is like when the Darth Vader helmet's getting lowered on Nate. Bit of a roller coaster there.
Except here, the acting's much better. I said it. I'm not taking it back. I'm sorry.
Whoa. Maybe that's why Nate's such a dickhead. He doesn't like sand. You just don't know.
Yes.
But I mean, but this in this episode as well, there are still these little hints and things about Nate's trajectory going forward. And again, we say it a lot, but it's that thing that Ted Lasso does is sow seeds and do little callbacks to things so incredibly well that you miss on the first time because you're watching it to see what happens, and then the second and third time through it, you're like, oh, hang on, that's this, and this is there, and it gets very Pepe de Silva with your string board on the wall. But yeah, there is a lot in this as well that feeds back to earlier episodes and stuff going forward. It's not one of my favorite episodes purely because it made me so sad. But then also, like, it's incredibly beautiful as well.
Yeah.
And Beard and his missus is just a big old mess of nonsense in this.
I can't wait to get there. We've left them waiting long enough, gentlemen. Let's get to it. This is episode 10 from season 2 of the Ted Lasso series entitled No Weddings and a Funeral. And as always, we've done our co-host Joe some justice and not covered him up entirely with the title, in case you're wondering why we did that. The original air date for this episode is September 24th, 2021. This episode is directed by MJ Delaney on a story by Jane Becker. And yes, 12 episodes in season 2. The finish line is upon us. It's just over the horizon. We're almost there. When last we left the Ted Lasso gang, we saw Coach Beard, troubled and dejected after AFC Richmond's loss in Wembley Stadium, embark on a late-night adventure that included pool hustling with Bass, Paul, and Jeremy, a mysterious lady in red, a brawl with Jamie's dad, and a reunion with Jane that ultimately brought Ted's right-hand man the peace of mind he was looking for. So there you have it, kids. By the way, that continues to be one of my favorite episodes of all time. I don't care what the critics say. I don't care. We open with Sam and Rebecca in bed. Uh-oh. As I Want to Sex You Up by Color Me Bad is playing in the background. I think it's safe to assume, kids, that yes, they've indeed had relations. Sam is wondering if they should tell people they're dating, and Rebecca says no, she likes the secrecy, the sneaking around at work. Sam says no, it's stressful, and he's going gray. Jay, weird question to kick off the show with, considering these two lovely actors are in bed together. But this came to me as I'm note-taking here. Is there any sort of precedent for a football player having a relationship with an owner? Because I really don't have the answer to that.
Not with an owner. That you do hear like rumors of players getting sold on because they've like had relations with either managers, like wives or daughters. Though that is something that I've heard multiple times about.
Ooh la la.
Or like owners, daughters as well, or wives. Like it's not like a massive thing, but you do every now and again hear sort of like rumblings about stuff like that.
So it's a Triple H Stephanie situation. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Our worlds always collide here on the show, kids, in case you don't have any idea. So the next scene is they're in the kitchen and Sam reminds her that they have the weekend off. She asks where they're going. And suddenly Deborah, Rebecca's mom, is just there as if she just materialized into the kitchen. And Rebecca introduces the two of them. Sam says, it's a pleasure to formally meet you. I sincerely wish I wasn't in my boxers right now. Deborah says, boxer briefs. And like clunky exposition, they leave very little to the imagination. He says, I'm sorry. And he kind of tries to sink behind the counter. It's so good.
I love that this is literally the most Sam reaction to this situation as possible.
100%. Yeah.
But it's also a direct sort of thing of when, what was he called? The other lad that her mum walked in on while they're in the kitchen.
Oh.
And he was just in the nude and didn't try and hide it and just stood there, proud of it.
That's right.
Sam tries to slink away because he is an honourable man.
That's I'll have to look that up. Yeah, he's one of those guys who just kind of came and went, I would suppose.
I don't think he was even named. I think he was just
he did have a name, but I think it was Pablo or something like that.
Yeah, it's not important. We never see him again.
Yeah. We don't see him again, do we? Interesting. What do you guys think about this? Because we've been leading up to the Sam and Rebecca thing, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds without asking this question. Were you okay with this? Did it feel weird? Not for any other reasons that we weren't accustomed to seeing these characters interacting like this. Do you think the lead up, the build up to it was good, to the reveal? Do you think it made sense? Because that's one of the things I think people push back on. This didn't make sense for the show. What's everyone's opinion on that?
I think they foreshadowed it in season 1.
They did. Yeah, they did.
And that Ben and the heirloom thing episode. Getting rid of the curse. They foreshadow it there, and then they kind of where they both kind of get giggly around each other, and then they sort of carry that on very subtly at first, and then ramp it up. I don't have any issue with it. I think the general sort of sentiment that a lot of people had towards it was, why isn't it Ted and Rebecca?
Because that doesn't make sense.
I think this episode actually kind of explains why it isn't quite well, which we'll get to later. But I like Sam and Rebecca as a couple. It's one of those kind of things where, obviously, given the nature of what their roles at the club are, I think they both kind of know it's sort of almost like a Romeo and Juliet, forbidden love sort of thing. It's nice when it's nice for the moment we do get it. I think they make a really good on-screen couple, and they're really kind of quite charming together.
It's the brightest flame burns quickest. Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. From the barrel burning thing to Sam asking to get out of his contract with the oil company, the Blue. Yeah, and Rebecca sees something in him then, and there is just these little bits all the way through it. They're very similar sort of characters, and then the whole banter texting thing back and forward. Is done very well. There's a lot of red herrings and stuff in there as well, but it's because of that fact is that they're both sort of, like I said, similar characters to each other, that it works very well. Ted isn't the point of Ted and Rebecca ending up together would never work.
No. It never work.
Anyone who says, they should have ended up together has clearly not watched the show properly. I don't want to be a snob about it, but
kind of situation.
It ain't about them.
No.
It would never happen.
And as sensible people, as I think we all three hopefully are, at some point you're like, I don't want them together. Even though it would be nice because you like them both to be happy in the end. I think they're good the way they are. You kind of common sense kicks in, and it's it doesn't make any sense. And also, real quick, do you guys realize how many times we've referenced the Two Aces episode from season 1? That episode was way more important than maybe we even thought it was upon first review. We've referenced it a bunch in this show.
Yeah.
Crazy. Rebecca asked her mom, she says, great, what's my father done this time? And she says, he's died, which is how the show kicks off, which is crazy. So
her mom only ever shows up when I've left him again, and it's just like a once every couple of months sort of thing. It feels like, but yeah, she's like, no, he's died.
Yeah, we had that episode because she kind of she finally broke down and well, maybe not. She breaks down here. She wanted to break down, but like she didn't see the point of telling her mom about it. But Buddy, she tells her here. So yeah, but we'll get there. We go to Ted's office. Ted, Beard, and Nate are quiet, and Keeley is there with Roy. And she asks, so where do you think her father is right now? And Roy says, in the drawer of a funeral home. Oh. She says, no, I mean like spiritually. In the drawer of a funeral home, which is great. And Ted says, growing up, I used to believe that if you did good things, you went to heaven. You did bad things, you went to hell. Nowadays, I know we all just do both. So wherever he is, I hope he's happy. Higgins says, I like to imagine a heaven where animals are in charge and humans are the pets. I'd like to spend eternity curled up in front of a fire at Cindy Crawford's feet.
Oh, like...
And Nate, yeah, right? And Nate says, I like to be reincarnated as a tiger and then ravage anyone who looked at me wrong, which is okay and funny and not so funny at the end of season 2.
Well,
because like...
No. When he said, I think that's like a really big red flag because when he says that, Ted and Beard look really uncomfortable at one another.
Beard does like his beard eyebrows thing at him. Like, and it's a weak man that wants to be powerful. But I just want to go back to Higgins's thing of like he's obsessed with Cindy Crawford even in death. It's brilliant.
Didn't he have like a little memorial to her in his house?
He's got a picture of her and like the date of death and stuff.
Oh,
we never meet Cindy Crawford, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think we ever met her. You're right, 100%. Yeah. Beard says, if you weigh a person's body right after death, it's 21.3 grams lighter, and some say that's the weight of the soul. Roy says, whoever figured that out clearly weighed someone, murdered them, then weighed them again. You live, you die, you're done. Good night. And then he leaves.
That's it. Big speech.
That's
it. Nothing more to say.
That line's fantastic. That's such a good line.
Keeley's like, he's on his period. And Beard goes, yeah. We go to the locker room and the entire team is there in street clothes. They're quiet as they were in Ted's office. And Isaac says, oi. Notice how he's picked that up from Roy, which is a nice touch. So we're all going to this funeral as a team. So that means ties, shirts, and he points to Jamie, who scoffs.
Jamie!
Shirts?
Jamie's like, I guess I have to put a shirt. Because isn't it earlier when he's with and he refuses to wear a shirt to the auction? He's just got a jacket on and like, no.
So good. And no trainers. Zorro says, what if they're like really nice Yeezys?
All of them are like, no trainers.
Yeah, what? Yeah. Isaac says, what color? Zorro says, bright red. Isaac stares at him for a minute.
Gives him a Roy Kent hard stare, doesn't it? And he's like, I'll buy shoes.
I'll drive. It's fine. Yeah. Danny says, where do you get dress shoes? Colin says, I don't have time to stand in line at midnight, wait till morning to buy new shoes. What the heck does that even mean? Jamie says,
like trainer people will
shoot
to get.
Well, that's
people,
true.
Like, pre-orders.
And I guess Colin thinks that that's how dress shoes work as well. I assume.
Yeah.
Is that what that line means?
They've only ever worn trainers.
That's why Jamie turns around and goes, "No one's going to be queuing for them because nobody wants them."
Yeah.
because Colin's like just like, oh God, how am I? And also the idea of like a footballer queuing up at midnight and not just sending like one of the like PAs or something to do it.
Yeah.
After this, we go to Rebecca's parents' house and she's asleep. She, meaning Rebecca, in her old room. You can kind of tell if it's her old room. And she's waking up to Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, one of my least favorite songs on the planet. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of this song.
Like Rebecca says, it's a great song that's just been overplayed.
I was going to say, I used to love this song and then it got overplayed to death. And it's like, nope, now I fucking hate it.
Yeah, it is like nails on a chalkboard now. Yeah.
It is. By the way, interesting side note, Rick Astley can shred. Did you know that? Have you seen him play?
Oh, yeah.
No, but I have 2 Rick Astley stories. One I've been to his he's got a pub in London called the George and Dragon, and I've stayed above it when I went to London one time, and I was in there a lot. Really nice pub. So the story with that kind of links to the other story in that there's a Danish brewer called McKellar. Well, I say brewery, but it's one guy.
I feel a pun coming on.
No pun. he's a massive Rick Astley fan. So he did a beer with him. And then like the Georgian Dragon is like a collab between the two of them, where like essentially they only sell McKellar's beer. And
right.
Rick Astley like co-owns the pub. But the other side of this where I'm getting to now is I literally missed Rick Astley performing a gig on the bar of one of McKellar's like breweries in Copenhagen by about 20 minutes because of the travel to get there was such a fucking pain in the ass. I literally got there and it was like really busy and everyone was like losing their minds, like, what the hell have I just missed? And they're like, oh yeah, Rick Astley's just like done a concert on the bar. I'm like, oh, well, that's disappointing that I missed that.
Like a terrible Coyote Ugly.
But yeah, so if you're ever in Copenhagen, you might bump into Rick Astley is the moral of the story there.
See, I thought like when they did the collab brew, I thought it was going to be Never Gonna Give You Hops or something like that.
Oh, that
I don't know. I don't know what it was actually called. Let me Google that. It might have been called that.
That was the pun I was expecting, and I was like,
By the way, he's not changed. He still has the same haircut and everything. Hey kids, Tom Clark here, and did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on BoinkStudios.com. BOINK, Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, BoinkStudios.com. I mean, you know, like he's frozen in time.
Again, Rick Astley facts, but he, on the way to go to America on the strength of that first album, the Rick Astley album, Never Gonna Give You Up, and the other hits, I don't know. He just got he just got out of the car and allegedly he just got out of the car and walked off and just didn't want to do it. And that's I don't know whether it's true or the urban legend of it, but he didn't want to go to America. He didn't want to be that guy. Because the thing is, at the end of the episode, she said, I always thought he was black. And because his voice is very, very soulful. Like, and I think it took a lot of people by surprise. They said the same thing about Elvis as well, though, didn't they? But
sure.
Yeah. But that's the only Rick Astley thing I know is that allegedly he just got out of the car before they got to the airport and just walked off and just abandoned it all.
Wow.
He's doing fine now. He's doing Smith's covers or something, isn't he?
The beer was called Northern Hop Lager.
Yeah, well, that's all right. I mean, I'm not adverse to a pun, but you missed the trick.
Rick Astley's Northern Hop Lager. Yeah.
Branding. So Rebecca agrees with us. She says, oh my God, this fucking song, Mother, turn it off. Deborah comes in and tells you that I like having it playing in every room of the house when I wake up. It makes me happy.
I was going to say the fact that she's got it playing in every room of the house is fucking psychotic. Like that. Like, if I'm listening to music in my house and I'm moving around the house, I'll just wear headphones.
Yeah, true.
I wouldn't be. I suppose like her mum's like really rich, isn't she? And that's why she's so out of touch with reality. Is that she's got to have speakers in every room of the house. But
I mean, we've done it with like house parties. We've had stuff playing in like the kitchen and the front room, like synced up with the
Oh no,
Amazon
like that
thing. But in every room of the house, first thing in the morning, listening to Rick Astley is a madman's folly. Yeah,
that's tough. Yeah, Rebecca says you shouldn't feel happy today, and Deborah, straight face, goes, "You should feel happy every day, Rebecca." Do you want to talk about that? Like, what's?
Yeah.
Wow. You know,
there feels like there's a lot of like deeply buried emotional trauma with her mum, doesn't there?
Yes.
That like even in this episode when they discuss it, they only kind of like they only seem to scratch the surface with it.
That's very true. Yeah.
It's a woman who has been through a lot. Yeah.
She says no. She says she is happy. Deborah tells her that the old Rebecca used to love that song. She says the whole world used to love that song. Then they heard it ad nauseum and got over it, which is a good point. Deborah says, well, I don't work that way. Once I love something, I love it forever, which will come back. Rebecca tells her that she can change the room anytime she wants. She doesn't have to keep it that way. Deborah tells her, no, it reminds me of when you were happy or when we were happy. And now she knows what song she wants to play next. And we don't get to whatever song she wants to play next because suddenly Sassy is on the balcony. who has not been Joe's favorite character, but I suspect becomes one of his favorite when she talks to Rupert because it's awesome. Yep. It's so good. And she comes in and tells Rebecca she wanted to see if she could still do it. That means climbing the balcony outside. And the Tracy Anderson workouts are having the right effect. She calls Sonora, who's climbing up after her, except she's taking her time. Sassy says, when I was your age, I could do this in seconds. And then to Rebecca and Deborah, she says, while I was drunk, by the way. And then suddenly we hear Nora, who is a child, drop outside. They rush to the window and she's lying on the ground laughing. Like, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm indestructible. I'm a kid.
I will say, their house is lovely. And that bedroom has got like a patio balcony on it.
Yeah, right? Jesus. Man, crazy rich, these people. We go to Keeley and Roy, who are getting ready for the funeral. She tells Roy that funerals are like parties for sad people.
Jeez,
like
this whole
she's like, maybe you're not sad, but you have to go and be sad. Roy says, yeah, they're horrible. And she says, Roy, if you die, do you want to be buried or cremated? Like, if you were hit by a bus today, what do I do? Go back to the bus driver and make him pay for what he did to me. Avenge me, Keeley.
Avenge me.
Oh, so this is actually taken when he says avenge me in the case of my death is actually referencing a scene from Red Dawn in 1984. Random bit of
the Wolverines.
Yeah. Right? There you go. Keeley is not smiling. He says, this funeral is really messing with your head, isn't it? And she says, I found this company. They bury you in a biodegradable sack. So when your body decomposes, it fertilizes the seeds of a fruit tree. That's what I want. Because then then you and all the people that you love, that love me, can eat the fruit from my tree. He says, that is fucking mental. And she says, coming from the guy that wants me to ruin a bus driver's life just because he killed you swerving to avoid a child.
I didn't know there was a child.
Yes.
Their whole fantasy life is tremendous.
Oh, so good.
Now they're all doing bits like Ted.
Yes.
And even their bits have storylines in them, which is awesome. Keeley says, I just like the idea that my death could nourish people. Roy says, with fruit made from your rotting corpse, I wouldn't eat that. But you'll eat a kebab that you find a hair in? It's fine if you know who the hair is from. That's part of the deal. He's a lovely bloke. You're not actually angry, are you? Yeah. And we assume he's talking about the guy at his favorite kebab place that Ted ruined several episodes back. Keeley says, yes, I am now angry. She said, now I have to go to a funeral and act sad. And Roy said, well, now I am sad. So great little exchange between those two. We go to Ted's apartment and Jason Sudeikis is rocking out to Easy Lover by Phil Collins and Philip Bailey. This song has been mentioned before in the show. You guys remember episode 5 in Rainbow when Ted says, I think a fella should only take as long as the tune Easy Lover by Phil Collins and Philip Bailey to get dressed in the morning. Yep. In this episode, we see he wasn't joking because that's what he's doing.
This is a tremendous callback.
It's great. One of those I was like, this is brilliant. And I imagine like if like they have Rick Astley on every morning, he's got Easy Lover by Phil Collins on every morning.
What I think's so good about this scene as well is that the callback kind of like catches you off, like it basically disarms you to then for the next thing to catch you off guard, which is exactly how like that would feel anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really cleverly done. Obviously a horrible scene, but very cleverly executed.
And what Jay's referring to, kids, is that Ted begins having a panic attack because we see on his dresser is a pic of Henry and the pic that Nate gave him. Okay? So again, Nate, I don't have much to say to you right now because I'm not happy with you. Ted's still rocking out, and then suddenly he flashes in his head to Henry and the Army Man, which is also tied into this series, and then it starts. And you're right, Jay. The context of this is we get this vibe and then we get that vibe, as is life, not to get too deep. Life is uncomfortable and doesn't happen the way you want it, and everything's okay until it's not okay. So, yeah, and they nail themes like that quite a bit in this show. At the church, an older couple walk up and are greeted by Rebecca and Deborah. Rebecca tells them that, Dad always loved you both. They walk in and she asks her mom, who are they? She says, I have no idea. And then we get another villain in this show, Rupert. Rupert and Bex walk up. Yeah, we haven't missed this guy, have we? They walk up with the new baby. Rebecca's surprised that he's there.
For who I hate most in this show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rebecca's surprised that he's there because he wasn't invited. He introduces the new baby, Diane. Who names their kid? I mean, there's women walking around named Diane, but I can't imagine having a baby going, let's call her Diane. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like having a baby called Jeff. Like, it's just not.
Yeah, here's Jeff.
Baby
Here's
Jeff. It's just not a name, is it?
Yeah. Deborah says, what a chubby baby. And the baby cries, and Rebecca says, congratulations, mother. You just fat shamed a baby to tears.
Oh.
It's great.
The fact that Rupert's like showing up at a dad's funeral for a bit of a fucking flex is horrifying.
Oh,
that's it.
Like,
the reason he's there.
In the background as well, did you not notice there's a nanny as well? Yeah,
there is.
Like, they're just like, they're only holding that there now to make a statement against Rebecca. We've got a child and you never had.
Mm-hmm.
What an absolute a-hole. Yeah,
he is.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. You can say asshole.
No, it's just I was more sorry about just like him.
Oh yeah, he's a horrible person. He hands the baby to Bex and it stops crying. He says it's the magic touch, and she says I ate the placenta raw, and she knows it. And I'm like, what? Like you did it to warn her? Watch this, kid. See this? I don't know.
No, it's one of those new age things of like bonding with your child and stuff. And I'm like, apparently I think you're supposed to cook it, I don't know. It feels very Game of Thrones, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And then, Joe, to your point, he's continuing to flex by saying, I had all the TVs in the house removed. I just sit around and watch them all day. And you can see what he's doing. He's trying to get at Rebecca. Like, look, she's out of your life. You know what, guys? Does it go back to the point that he wants to get back at her because she left him? Because now he can't control her. Is that what all this is? Because he's got no reason to do this to her.
Not only did she leave him, though, she took like the thing that he does value the most in his life away from him.
There you go.
Which is the club.
There you go.
So that's why he's like just being a vindictive little arsehole, because he can't get his own way. He's trying to show that he's still got like power over her emotions, and he's doing that by like doing like literally like the lowest thing he fucking can, which is showing up to her dad's funeral and being a piece of shit to her,
rubbing a baby in her face. He's just a bully. He always has been. Like, he always will be. And because he is rich and powerful, no one's ever put him in his place. And I think Rebecca leaving him made him lose face in front of people. You couldn't even control your woman, sort of thing. But also, he's seen that she has flown higher than she ever could without him. And I think that sticks in his craw. And the only thing that he can do is try and bring her down to his level, because he is such a shitebag.
He is. Yeah. For sure. We'll see what happens in season 3, kids. But
by the way, Henry is still the worst character in this show.
Just as a reminder for
Henry,
Rupert, Nate.
Nate has ups and downs, but
yeah. The AFC Richmond bus pulls up. This was the first moment in this episode that I got a little misty-eyed, because the entire team, led by Higgins, has come to the service, and she didn't expect any of this. And you could tell it really means a lot to her. She's also impressed they're not wearing trainers. And Danny
Higgins comes over and he goes like, sorry for your loss. And she goes, how many of them came? And he goes, all of them. And they come off and she's going, and they're not wearing trainers. And that's the bit that she's up, like, she gets emotional about. Yep. Like, this is serious. They've put shoes on for me.
The little subplot with Danny with like the shoes is fucking fantastic.
Oh, Danny's little hobble.
He's obviously struggling. And in the background, Sam, he's walking up. He comes face to face with her and then is flanked by the other guys. So they don't realize how uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but how it is for him. They all offer sorry for your loss. Yeah, good point. Hide in plain sight. Nate tries to be creative with, father's the training wheels and the bikes of, sorry, I just didn't want to say what they said. Sorry for your loss. So Yeah. Continues to be the most awkward person in the room.
Couple of points. Wearing
And
a grey suit.
Yes.
Right? But just not like
only suit he
not
owns.
allowed at a wedding, but he's the only one who isn't wearing black. And also, it is the only suit he owns because it's the suit that Ted bought him. So earlier on, we were questioning whether Nate had any other suits. He does not. He only has one suit, and it's the one that Ted bought him, which makes everything worse.
I didn't pick up on the not wearing black bit, Joe, but that's brilliant because, like, is that also symbolism of I'm here, but I'm only here because if I didn't come, it would have been rude.
I think it's more. I think it's more kind of like obviously Nate's not like Nate wants that recognition and that independence of like being in charge, but at the same time, he's still kind of. I don't even think that. I think he's still kind of just like very clueless. Like Ted took him to buy that suit, and obviously it does have that kind of sentimental value towards him because Ted took him to get it. But at the same time, it's like Nate still needs someone, as we see in the following episodes. Nate still needs someone to hold his hand to buy a suit.
Yeah,
like, okay. I think he genuinely doesn't know where to start with it, but he realizes him getting that kind of like getting himself like something that's going to make him stand, like a suit of armor to stand out or something like that. I think it's more that he's clueless about it, and the fact that it's the suit that Ted bought him is setting up for what happens in the following scene more than it is Nate just being a dickhead. I think this one's more he is being a dickhead, but he's being a clueless dickhead, not that he's being like a narcissistic. Yeah.
Right, of course. The intentional part comes later. Speaking of being awkward, Sam awkwardly gives a double thumbs up, and Beard I found this weird. Beard wearing his flat cap and dark glasses gives the finger gun to her, and she gives it back. Did anybody else look at that and go, what was that?
I thought that just sums up their relationship perfectly.
I was like, Beard's not going to come over and be like, my condolences. It's just like, that's as close as Beard gets to saying, you know, like, and like Rebecca appreciates it and returns it. And like, I think that's just their relationship.
Yeah. That's fair. Can we acknowledge this for a second here? This is the same team that she was going to destroy. That she didn't, not that I wish death on people. She didn't care about any of these dudes. Didn't care about them. That didn't want them to win, you know, and now they're all here for her. Like, amazing what a difference a year can make, man. It's crazy. They totally have her back. And she has theirs as well. This is the moment I alluded to earlier. This is effing fantastic between Sassy and Rupert. She destroys him, at least for this moment, because number one, she's got no emotional ties to him other than the fact that she hates him. Number two, he's got no power over her whatsoever, and you can completely see that as she talks to him. Takes no prisoners, leaves him for dead. She greets him with, "Oh, decrepit shitbag," which is awesome. He says, "I have a daughter now. I've changed." She says, "Having a daughter erases all the shitty things you've done to women in your lifetime. Cool. I think about your death every single day. I can't wait. I'm going to wear red to your funeral as a beacon of joy to the other 3 people there."
It's like,
outstanding.
Rein it in. Like, but hey, why has Rupert gone over to speak to her? Because like, he knows he hates her, and is it only because it's a funeral and he thinks she has to be polite to me so I can score points on it? And like, Sassy, for all her faults,
I mean,
don't give no shits. She just tears him. It's brilliant.
Yeah, Rupert's probably thinking she's not gonna surely she's not gonna cause a scene at here, even though he's causing a fucking scene by being there. Yeah. But also, Sassy doesn't care. Like, you see that with like the whole like where she sees Keeley and like the screaming and like hugging each other. Like she's there to support her friend, and she's not gonna like tone it down because she's supporting her friend. She's there to support her friend. That's it.
But I think she also knows as well that like Rebecca didn't really like her dad, and so they're only there as a performative action. So
Yeah.
treat it as a party.
Yeah.
And he says, always a pleasure. Sassy. She says, fuck off and die, Rupert, with a big smile on her face, which is nice. We go to Dr. Sharon. Ted has called her during the panic attack, and we don't hear what Ted's saying on the other end, but she's trying to coach him through it. I think it's amazing we've got to this point with these two that Ted is now, and things happen coming up for these two characters as not a couple, but as a interaction, like a relationship, sort of professional relationship. But like until that point, seeing him that he didn't know what else to do. So he reached out to her, which is great. He's finally admitting, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do now, which is awesome. Do you love films that have the same plot over and over and over and over again with only slightly different looking people in the main roles, but just don't have time to watch them all? You do? Then simply listen to Hallmark of Greatness, the only podcast that takes you through such masterpieces as Love at Sea, Love at Christmas, and A Volcano Sacrifice for Love. See a pattern here? Available wherever you get podcasts from, and also find us on social media by looking for Hallmark of Greatness. So we're back at the service. She's watching Rupert and his new family. Keeley walks up and says, that baby sucks. I hate it and it's whack. It's great. She's like, I'm here for you. I won't leave your side. And then she sees Sassy and they start screaming at each other. She runs away. It's awesome. She runs away. It's that bit, guys, we've talked about many times in this show where they say the one thing and then that other thing happens. Like immediate contradiction, like for a sight gag. So good.
I love the way that little old couple who, like, Rebecca and her mum didn't know who they were.
Scowl at them.
Yeah, they walk past the scowl and Sassy just goes, keep walking.
My God. Yeah, keep walking. Yeah. She says, what's great is that Roy's left with Rebecca and they just look at each other and he says, I'm used to it. That's all he does, which is great. Sassy's telling her that she looks amazing and people are not happy as they're walking by, like you guys said. And she says, I guess we're supposed to be sad. Funerals are so weird. And Keeley's like, I was literally thinking about that earlier. Do you also want to be a tree when you die? She goes, hell yeah. Or a really stupid dog. Either one is a great life. So where's Ted? Keeley says, Ted and Sassy sitting in a tree. Fucking. And she's doing that sway back and forth like a little girl.
Thrusts, yeah.
Yeah. She says, shut up, you little troll. She's so rude to her. She says, shut up, you little troll. And Keeley, like, we all know Keeley wears her heart on her sleeve and she really gets her feelings hurt. She's attached to these girls.
Yeah, they're her. Immediately runs it back with, sorry, I say mean things to beautiful women. And I was like, oh, I'm using that.
Nice. Oh, that's really good, right? Yeah. Except when we say it, we get slapped, depending on who we say it to.
Actually, no, if I said it to someone, it feels like one of those slimy pickup artist things, doesn't it? Like negging or whatever it's called. Yeah, maybe not.
I think it's the delivery. I think if you go, sorry, I say mean things to beautiful women versus I say mean things to beautiful women. Yeah. It's the delivery. Oh my God, that's funny. Yeah, Sassy can be unnerving at times, but her and Keeley together are a riot. I think they complement each other very well.
And they also complement Rebecca as well.
Yeah.
Fast forward to season 3, I think these three have way more chemistry than the new character that's introduced in season 3 that becomes part of Keeley's life. We'll get there. I don't know. Not to get too much on it. I never felt anything there. Personally, I feel it way more. I don't think
you're meant to, but we'll save that for when we.
We
have to sit through those.
That's a great comeback. You're right. Maybe I wasn't supposed to. Maybe that was the point. Good call. Yeah.
Reasons that she's there, and it makes sense, but bleh.
It's more of a. She's there for more of a plot device than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Shedding her past and going forward.
to be a compelling character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's there to remind Keeley of her past, and Keeley's trying to move on from it, but it drags her back occasionally because, as we found out, she jumped out of a helicopter topless eating a burger at some point. Like there's a lot of weird stuff that happens.
That's a good point. Yeah. Keeley's had a life, guys. I don't know what
Liverpool's nightlife. Wow. The Asian pastime, karaoke. Yeah.
And confirmed, the karaoke bars here.
Yep.
The Asian pastime. I always love that part of it.
Yeah, the incredible
Big karaoke scene.
Like the weird, was it the vodka thing where she's dressed as a panda and all that weird stuff? Yeah, she's had a life, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Keeley mentions to her that she believes Rebecca's secretly dating someone for weeks and wonders if this is the right day to ask her about it. Sassy walks up, Jamie, Nate, and Jan Moss walk up to Keeley. She compliments their suits and asks Nate if it's the same suit Ted bought for him. And he is very awkwardly, he tries to think about it and like he doesn't know, and then says yes. Jan says, you can always depend on Jan Moss. Another man buying you clothes is infantile. I can't pronounce it.
Infantilizing.
What is it? Infantilizing. And Jamie's response is like, oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah. Like, he's just disgusted with Jan.
But yeah, but like you said, Jan doesn't understand like
he just
the
doesn't have
subtleties of human interaction. Yeah, he's just like. But then Nate goes, no, my mum buys some of my clothes. It's like, you're not helping yourself.
It's Jan Moss's face when he says that as well. When he's like, he's about to say something, and Jamie just kind of like gives him a look to say, "Shut the fuck up, dickhead."
Yeah. I mean, he is Dutch. Let's don't forget. I mean, that's the crutch. The crutch is he's Dutch. Hey, there you go. Yeah. So Roy walks up and he's eating an apple that he got from a tree outside. He says it tastes like dead people, and it's surprisingly delicious. I found this hilarious, man. Oh, Keeley's disgusted and just walks away. Roy says, cheer up, Keeley. It's a funeral. Later on, we get an explanation of why he's doing this. But at the time, does it start to feel like he's kind of being a douchebag to her? Is he digging at her? Like, what'd you guys think?
I feel like with Roy, you can always assume with the way he acts as a defense mechanism. Because the majority of the time when he's acting the way he acts, it's that there's never any kind of like meaningless action with Roy. Like, he's either an open book with you for brief, fleeting moments, or he's got his guard up. So the fact that he's being a bit of a dickhead here, for me, it feels like, yeah, it's probably Roy just being like trying to hide his own insecurities, which we find out later is exactly that.
It is. We go to a scene with Jamie and Danny. Danny says, I hate dress shoes so much, Jamie. Jamie says, I know, muchacho. The fact he's calling them muchachos, I love this Jamie. The first Jamie in season 1 is entertaining, but cruel for the sake of being cruel. I love this Jamie.
Like, dumb Jamie is the best Jamie.
It is, yeah. I know, muchacho, because remember, they ain't made for people like us. They're made for sheep. They're made for muggles. They're made for twats. It's great. He says, when I get home, I will set them on fire and the memory will burn in hell. Jamie's like, Jesus, Danny. He says, Jesus has no place in this conversation of these damn shoes.
But like, deadpan, like he is going to burn them when he gets home.
Oh, yeah.
You notice when he walked away, he's mumbling like he did in the shower of episode 1 when he killed the dog.
He's crossing himself and like...
Oh, I love when Danny's around. We go back to Sharon and Ted. Sharon goes to Ted's apartment and the place is a mess. He's in his chair with his head down. He tells her that he's better, not good, but better. She sits down with him and he says, you want something to drink, cup of tea or something? She goes, no, thank you. I hate tea. Tastes like a wet paper bag. So we figure out they're on the same page on something.
Yeah. Well, before, when the phone rang as well, it says Coach Lasso now. Whereas before he phoned, just a little thing, but there is these little bits in there. But yeah, the hatred of tea is something they can bond over as well.
You're right. Yeah, he flat out tells her, says, "I'll tell you anything," which is great. We're going to come back to that. Beard is on FaceTime with Jane, and he says, "I don't think I've ever been in a properly Anglican house of worship before, and it makes me miss you, and I just wish you were here." She says, "Me too. I love funerals. Is it an open casket?" And he says, God, I hope so. She says, me too. She closes her eyes and she's like she's inhaling the moment. Like she can't wait. Like this chick is messed up.
Yeah.
I'm just
I also
saying.
thought like I'm thinking about the proper Anglican Church of Worship, because they did meet in that rave under the church,
Yeah,
didn't they?
I was literally about to say
And
that.
I was just like, is that a little wink to that as well?
Well done. Well done. Yes, well done. Are they made for each other, honestly?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Beard's really fucking weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a bit where he just goes and walks off with the phone. I'm like, I thought they were going to go off and like do weird stuff in a cupboard or something. But I don't know. It's just very strange.
It is very strange. The priest is walking by and hears Rebecca and Keeley laughing loudly. The two are talking about Keeley enjoying confession when she was growing up. She made the priest blush and barf at the same time. Sassy comes in and says, "This is not the first time it happens. I was asked to tell you to lower your voices, but she's also brought booze with her," which is interesting.
What was it? Stole it off a little boy in a white dress.
Yes. She asks Rebecca, she says, "So who are you secretly shagging?" And Rebecca goes, "What?" Keeley says, "Let's get the part where you pretend you're not, yeah?" Rebecca says, "What are you even talking about?" Keeley says, "How about the bullshit text after the date? The fact that I have not seen you outside of work for 2 weeks, and that even though today is your father's funeral, you are glowing like a girl that just got properly plowed." Great line. Rebecca says, "Shit," which confirms everything for everyone.
And they're all shrieking as well, doing that thing. And it's like, you're in the back room of a church, right? With like weirdly children's toys and like golden goblets, and like, do all churches have like a room of treasure in the back?
Like the Indiana Jones discovered. That's what. Yeah.
It definitely feels like that room doubles as like a creche or something.
Yeah.
That's the cup of a carpenter. I'm just saying. There's your Indiana Jones reference for the episode. So,
indeed.
Yes. Deborah and Nora come in saying, "We were asked to come in and tell you to lower your voices."
None of them shut the door.
None of them shut the door. It's a good call. Nora says that the vicar looked like he wanted to swear when he told him to go in there. Keeley says, "We're just trying to figure out who Rebecca is shagging." Deborah says, "Oh, I know, and it's good." I love this bit between these ladies. This is really, really fun. She says,
"Hey," given it away straight away.
Yeah, she didn't tell anybody. Yeah, she kept the secret.
Has her secrets. Yeah.
Sassy says, hang on. Let's play 20 questions. And Nora says, "Oh my, this is thrilling." She's really here for it. Sassy says, "Is he tall?" Rebecca says, "Yes." Keeley goes, "Is it Sam?" Like, just like that.
Yeah.
Like, how'd we get there? She goes, "How the fuck did you know that?" And they all start cackling again. It's a great scene. The priest comes in and tells them to stop, and everyone's out. Get out except for immediate family. She apologizes. They're all apologizing, and she apologizes to Nora, and she apologizes to Nora because we know Nora has always had a crush on Sam. Just don't forget that.
Sam. Yeah.
Nora says,
refers back to the email they sent. Yeah.
The boss ass bitch.
And
she says,
"I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Also, you can tell she's Sassy's daughter because she's worn a leather jacket to her funeral.
Oh, good call. Wow. Yeah. That would be a fun character. If this show ever got a second wind, not a new season, but if it ever got some sort of a spinoff, it'd be interesting to see Nora on that show playing a part. Like, I'd be curious to see.
I feel like they've definitely, not to go too much into it, they've definitely left the door open for either season 4 to be like treated as, well, a spin-off to be treated as season 4, or if it's season 4, it will be more like a spin-off.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and they left Ted's story where it should be left, but I think there are other stories they could pick up the pencil and go back to work for sure.
There's so many interesting characters who have stories yet to tell.
And let's face it, like, you just look at interviews with them all, and they all want to do it.
Yeah.
Like they're all desperate to like revisit those characters and see where they're up to now. So
yes, but write a good, don't Arrested Development it. Write a good script.
God, why did you bring up Arrested Development? Thanks.
It's burned into my brain.
I blocked that out. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, like go back. I was going to say, go back to the creative team that got you those first 3 seasons, and don't bring anyone else on board. I mean, I don't know. I think you stick with the team that got you those 3 seasons, honestly. And if they want to do it,
it helps that most of the writing team are the main characters.
That's true too. Yeah,
it's Brett Goldstein and Brendan Hunt are like the 2 main writers, and Nick Mohammed does a lot of writing as well.
So back at Ted, Sharon is telling him that it's not surprising he had a panic attack. It's probably bringing back memories of his dad's funeral. But Ted didn't go. So she says, why? She says, because, he quit. He quit on the family, quit on himself. And he says, I hate him for that. And I believe I still hate him for that. Sharon says, it's okay. It's hard to make sense of it all. And then we get an interesting dynamic back and forth between Ted and Rebecca, how their stories are,
incredibly well done.
It
bit
is.
Bit of cinematography here as well.
Yeah.
Of their stories are completely different, but also share that same sort of trauma.
So one thing I want to ask before we do kind of dig really deep into it, do you think the way the date is revealed in this, do you think it was like done to be vague, or do you think it's done because it's the same date?
I didn't read it as the same date because it switches when he mentions it, and I think it might be around the same time. But
so Rebecca says Friday the 13th, and then Ted says September 1991. So it's done in a way where it's deliberately kept apart, but almost as if it could be interpreted that it's either the exact same day or it's a similar period of time.
Yeah, but then Ted does say they were going to watch all the Friday the 13th films. So
that's what I was thinking as well.
I mean, it doesn't add or take anything away if it was the same.
That was a Friday.
That was I don't know. They'll have done their research on whether it was a Friday or not.
I just thought if it is the same date, it's fascinating that they've like decided to go down that road. That like the sort of like whole kind of thing with their dads that kind of shaped who they become is intrinsically linked to that specific day with that specific moment happening. Obviously two very different moments, but it all comes down to their dad letting them down.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, well,
basically, kids, we're getting the Rebecca story of catching her dad cheating on her mom, and Ted's story of finding his dad after he's killed himself. Two entirely different things, but to your point, Joe, Jay, it may have been you that said it just now about the dad let them down. I mean, it's deep.
Did we know that Ted's dad killed himself?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We found out at the end of Man City.
Yeah, we did. Yes. Yeah.
Crazy.
This was basically kind of like the reactionary episode to finding out about Ted telling Dr. Sharon about his dad.
Yeah, we needed that break of Beard's night out.
Beard's night of debauchery.
Yeah. I will also point out as well that on Ted's table is the army man. There's like a half bottle of whiskey and the army man, which again comes back all the way through it all.
So when Dr. Sharon goes into Ted's flat as well, it's a really cool like flip of when Ted like takes her back to her flat after she's in the accident.
Yeah,
and he looks around the flat and he's trying not to like comment on it. Where she goes in and obviously she walks like through his kitchen and then gets to like the sort of like front room where he sat, and she just looks around and like realizes, oh god, like Ted's in a worse like way than he's actually letting on.
Spiraled massive, yeah. Ooh.
Crazy. You're right, Joe. It's an excellent scene here. This is just this is great filmmaking here, kids. I got to tell you, it's emotional too. Like hearing anyone share a story of losing a parent always gets me. It's always, because it just, not to get into it, but it does shape your life as you grow up. That's for sure. No matter what age it happens. Sharon, back to the Ted bit, she understands why Ted is angry with his dad for leaving. She asked him what he was like, which is a very therapist/psychologist thing to do. Tell me about him. Don't just tell me about the end. Tell me about him. How was he? What was he like as a person? And he said he was a chatterbox, but could have been a better listening box. But she wants to know what he loved about him. And he tells this long story about this book he had to read called Johnny Tremaine. And the homework for a month was to read this book. At the end of the month, I hadn't read a lick of it. We had a big test like the next day. And I'm flashbacking to moments of doing that as a kid because I did that very thing. We probably all did, going, that test is tomorrow? No. Yeah. And trying to figure out what you're going to do. So he's getting emotional with his dad. And he's like, whoa, buddy, what's wrong? What's wrong? He tells him and he says, don't worry about it. Go up to your room, lay your head on your pillow and think about something you're looking forward to. And the next day, instead of letting him ride his bike to school, he drives him to school. And on the way to school, he talks him through the entire book like it's a bedtime story because his dad stayed up all night, the whole night, reading the whole damn thing because he didn't want his little boy stressed out over some stupid, silly test, which is all it is, teachers. It's a stupid, silly test.
Being able to remember things by rote is no mark of intelligence.
Thank you.
That's why standardized testing is nonsense.
Thank you.
That's the story for another day.
You're right, 100%. He said he was a good dad. And I don't think he knew that. Maybe if he knew, he wouldn't have done what he did, which broke me. That was the second moment I kind of really broke because that's huge to say of your dad. Join the Untitled Wrestling Podcast for all the latest pro wrestling news from around the world. Want to dive deeper? Interviews, fantasy booking, roundtable discussions, quizzes, video game streaming, watch-alongs, and a lot more can all be found on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. You can also find the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Untitled Wrestling Podcast, and Twitter, Twitch, and Discord at Untitled Rest Pod. Follow, subscribe, and download today. Ted tells her that his dad was always at work or out with friends, and then he was gone. And he knew right then that he was never going to let anybody get by him without knowing if they're hurting inside, because life is hard. My God, that's his whole character, isn't it? He wants to be sure everybody in his inner circle is okay. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Sharon thanks him.
Yeah, honorable man, a good man, and this is the thing.
Sharon thanks him and he asks for a hug. He asks if he says, "Are you going to charge me for this session?"
He says, "Is it illegal? But can I have a hug?" Like,
yeah,
he's not
that's
sure.
it.
And like, even in this emotional outpouring of like remembering his dad and remembering the good times, because he tells the story, doesn't he, of finding his dad. That's where the two stories intertwine between him and Rebecca. Is she comes home and finds her dad having sex with this woman, and he just doesn't ever mention it again. And he comes home and finds his dad has killed himself. And the two stories like overlap and link up really, really well, and it cuts between the two, and it's an incredible piece of cinema. But then Sharon's like, "Well, don't remember the bad times. Remember one thing that made you happy." And he tells that story, and he realizes that you can be angry at your dad for that, but also remember, like, he was your dad. He was a good person. Do we ever find out why he killed himself, or was it just?
No, it's very, very vague about it. It's just that's pretty much what you learn.
That we find out
the entire show. So when I said earlier about like there's the reason why I think like Ted and Rebecca shouldn't work as a relationship, this kind of scene is what cemented it for me, because you look at their journeys and they both seem to have like these parallels, that like the first one being this, where it kind of shaped who they become. And then obviously when they then kind of first cross paths, they're both going through a similar sort of thing. Rebecca's just left Rupert and divorced him, and Ted's just about to go through a divorce himself. And it's like they're kind of there to kind of be buffers for one another, to sort of help each other through the situation, not so much not romantically, just because they can both relate to what they're going through, because they've both got this weird parallel between their two lives.
Shared trauma.
Yeah, good call. I love the bit at the end of this where he asks if she's still going to charge him for the session. She says, "Of course I am." He says, "I appreciate your integrity."
And a house call.
Yeah. Back at the church,
a weird side note as well. Like I'd never read Johnny Tremain, because I think it's a very American book. It's about the American Revolution and blah blah blah. But I looked at like the crib notes for it and stuff, and it is basically a story of self-sacrifice, like honor, and all of these things that Ted basically is now. Like he's the paragon of all of these virtues that the cornerstones of this book. And I don't think the story of Johnny Tremaine being chosen as the book that his dad chose to self-sacrifice to stay up and read is purely by fluke. Like, I think again, nothing in this is by accident. Everything is by design. And I've never read it. It sounds really boring. There is a Disney film made of it, which looks terrible as well, so I might watch that. But it's just, yeah, like all the books that Beard reads are for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was also picked because, yeah, it shows that honor and virtue and self-betterment and taking care of other people are so heavily ingrained in Ted's psyche. Maybe not. Maybe his dad did it like inadvertently, but it's always been there, and that's why he is who he is as well.
Like you said, it's by design, Joe. Nothing's here by accident. It's, this show does mimic life, or not mimic, but present life. It depends on the situations, but the actual bones of this show, every seed planted bears fruit in the end, and everything's connected, for sure.
Tastes like dead people.
It does taste like dead people. I love that line. You know what I mean? I think it's hilarious. What a comeback.
Also, in London, no one's eating fruit off a tree, like, because it would just be inch thick with carbon monoxide or whatever. Like, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So he's gone out and bought that just to make that joke.
Of course.
Which is the kind of level of petty that I work at as well.
That's fair. Back at the church, Deborah apologizes and says she was too scared to leave. But Rebecca points out that, I left and it was hard, but now it's rather wonderful. Deborah tells her that Rupert was a self-righteous shit, but that she was nice to him when dealing with people like that, because it's important to make sure they know they can't get to you. Which is a great line. At the end of the day, what's more important, being loving or being right? Good question. She was proud of Rebecca when she left. She knows she's got a lot of baggage, but when she loves something, she loves it forever, as we said in the opening. And she loved her father. She knew her father wasn't perfect. She didn't need him to be. He always came back. She's glad to hear that Rebecca hates her, because all those years she thought she didn't feel anything for her.
This line here, I'd rather have your anger than your indifference. It's like, oh, mate, dropping them all over the place in this episode.
They are. Yeah. What about the priest coming in, telling them it's time, and then he thanks them for keeping their voices down? It's great. Great. We go through the service, and the priest talks about the deceased, saying that he always paid close attention to the Richmond match he was listening to on his radio every Sunday. They all get a nice laugh from that. Danny's struggling with his shoes in the pew, and the lady behind him, I suppose, thinks that he's grieving.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, you're okay," but he like, pans up from his taking his shoe off, like he can't do it anymore. Sorry.
The camera make a point to look around the room. We see all the players, and Beard is showing Jane the funeral on FaceTime.
They're all singing, and she's singing "All Things Bright and Beautiful" along with him or whatever. And I'm like, this is so weird.
Amazing
oh my
Grace.
God.
Huh? Oh, was it Amazing Grace? Sorry. There's like 3 funeral songs in there. Like,
yeah.
Rebecca gets up there and she says, I don't really know what to say, because, because earlier we left this bit out. Deborah wanted her to eulogize, and she didn't know what she's going to say up there. She hadn't wanted no part of this, because her and her dad were not on good terms because of what he had done. Right. And again, the forever linking Ted and Rebecca is that the moment Rebecca says something, the entire church is interrupted by Ted opening that big clunky door and closing it and coming in and sitting down. And she says, my father was, and then she begins to recite the lyrics to Never Gonna Give You Up by the aforementioned shredding on the guitar, Rick Astley. And I had to say, I know every line of that freaking song because of having to hear it 1,000,000 times in my life, like we all do. And then one by one, Ted joins in first.
But she breaks, doesn't she? She gets to like the chorus and just can't go on, because she's looking at her mum, and like wounds are being mended at this point. But like it's and to be fair, like Anna Waddingham's performance in this as well is astounding. Like it's incredibly well done. And then Ted, being Ted, sees what she's going through, sees what she's doing, and joins in, and everyone turns and looks at him, And Ted being Ted is just like, yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'm here for my friend, whether it's my own humiliation, we keep on. And then Keeley joins in. Keeley's first to join in.
When they go to Liverpool in season 1 and she helps him outside from the panic attack, in that next episode, he visits her in the office. Remember, he tells her, I've got your back for life now, in so many words. That's why he does this. It's not just because he's nice. He'll always have her back because she had his.
Yep.
Crazy good. Crazy good. Outside afterward, both Rebecca, and it's good because Rebecca ends it with thank you for that. And she's very humbled and very emotional, and they all sing.
It's also the bit where she goes, never gonna give, never gonna give. And then they all do the call and response, and I'm like, only a show like Ted Lasso could have a funeral with a call and response version of Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, and it makes sense and be poignant.
Yeah.
I was going to say that this whole episode, obviously, like the title's very much a sort of homage to Richard Curtis, but this whole episode feels like a Richard Curtis film.
But better.
But not shit.
Not so cliched that it makes me want to rip my own throat out.
Yeah.
It feels like a what now?
A Richard Curtis film. So there's obviously 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Is the reference to it.
We didn't point that out, did we?
Notting Hill. What's the Christmas one that everyone bangs on about?
Love Actually.
Love Actually. He basically writes these sort of...
Didn't he do that Beatles one recently as well? Which is
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all kind of just like rubbish love stories.
That was
twists in and
I enjoyed yesterday.
Down the corner from my house.
Should have thrown rocks at them, mate. Chased them off.
Well, I didn't know it was getting filmed there at the time. It was just like, it was literally just that. Obviously, because I live by Penny Lane, they had to go to Penny Lane.
Yeah.
I enjoyed yesterday. As a Beatles guy, I enjoyed that movie. Actually, you have seen it or you haven't?
Haven't.
I think it's good. I think if you're a Beatles fan, you'll get something out of it.
As soon as I saw Ed Sheeran was in it, I was like, nope.
Well, yeah, that put me off.
Ruined Game of Thrones, you did.
That's what we do here, kids. We get distracted. We've done really well this episode, though. We barely got distracted at all.
We've been pretty focused on this.
Because it's a long episode and there's a lot in it, and
there's a lot
going on about conflicts would be.
This is like the warm up for season 3, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Every episode's an hour, boys. Strap up.
Yes. God. Pack a lunch. Get a cot. Get ready. Outside afterward, both Rebecca and Deborah are extremely overly polite to Rupert, illustrating Deborah's point from earlier. She's invited Rupert, Bex, and the baby to the house, but he declines, saying it's nap time. Sassy burns him one last time with, "For you or the baby," which is a great line. He then tells Rebecca he's convinced Bex to give up her shares in AFC Richmond, and he wants her to have them. And doesn't she say something like
funeral gift?
Yeah.
So,
a weight cake.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news here. This is Rupert getting the last laugh. Because he's opened the door for something that we find out about in the last episode.
Yeah.
Because there's a rule where you can't own shares in more than one team in the league.
There you go.
So this is basically a trap to lull Rebecca into a false sense of security before Rupert pulls the rug out from underneath her a couple of episodes later. But yeah, fun.
But,
foreshadowing. Yeah.
But also new wife is like, oh, she won't sleep in the room unless I'm there, and all 3 of them go, like very, very patronizingly to her as well. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Big time. And people through the past few years have wondered where the baby was, but to our point from earlier, the nanny was there. So we assume the nanny has the baby at this point. You know.
Also, there's a weird bit in the funeral where she's breastfeeding, and
Colin looks really uncomfortable.
Colin looks across her, and I'm like, what is this in here for? It's just a weird scene.
It is. Yeah. After he walks off, and guys, here we go. He walks off. Rebecca sees him from a distance, whispering something to Nate. Upon first viewing, can we recall, any of the 3 of us, if we thought anything of this or no?
I didn't even fucking think of that.
I sort of was like, why is he talking to Nate? They've only ever had like 2 interactions before, I think. and it feels very weird. But again, it could just be him doing his peacocking around the place, like.
That's him sowing the seeds of dissent for the following episode.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Okay. I literally I don't know if I must have just missed that when I was writing notes.
It's a quick thing.
It is a really throwaway thing. Yeah.
He literally like leans in, whispers into his ear, and then like pats him and walks off. And it's very sort of, doesn't she look tired from Doctor Who? It could be nothing. Like it could just be him peacocking around the place, showing everyone that he's Charlie Big Potato. But the first time through, I was like, no, doesn't. I know Nate's on this weird thing at the moment, but in hindsight, this is what sets up the last.
Yeah.
It ends up being essentially, give me your Messiah and I'll give you your 30 pieces of silver. Essentially. Betray him and you'll get what you want. You know, that's how I read it.
30 pieces of silver.
Yeah. Huh?
Again.
30 is a going rate for any good Messiah.
I'm saying.
3.
The number's been established. 31's too much. And we don't want to flaunt the wealth. 29's not enough.
Never get anyone to do it for 31. Come on now.
Saying when you could get him for 30.
Unless it's Yuri Geller.
Well,
and all you church folk, relax. We're just making jokes. That's all. It's okay. So it is a funeral episode after all. And at Deborah's house, Rebecca's telling Keeley and Sassy that she needs to break it off with Sam. Sassy sees Ted from a distance and goes to speak to him. And Danny wearing Rebecca's slippers as he comes down the stairs. And he's thanking Rebecca. Yes.
When it pans down his feet, they're bloody. There's plasters. There's bandages all over them. I'm like, you've had those shoes on for 3 hours.
He says, "I'm so happy we wear the same size." And she says, "Good, me too. You keep those." Danny says, "Your generosity knows no boundaries." Did she know that he'd went upstairs to find shoes, or do you think that he asked her if he could?
I think he probably asked.
I don't know, because she sees him she sees him coming down. She looks really confused by the whole.
She does. That's why I was asking. Jamie comes up to Keeley. This is good. This is big. Talk about the way Jamie's changed. He says, "Listen, Keeley," and I can't think of Jamie without him saying, "Listen, Keeley, I can't help it. I know that you're with Roy and that you're happy, but today's made me realize that I hate myself if I didn't say I didn't just come back to Richmond to get away from my dad. I also came back because of you. I finally think I'm becoming the best version of myself, the kind of man that you always knew I could be. And I know this is a mad, shitty thing to do, but I love you, Keeley." Most grown-up thing this dude maybe has ever said in his life, perhaps.
Like
pretty big.
He is becoming an actual, responsible, thinking human being as opposed to a self-obsessed narcissist, which is what he was for most of the first season. But doing this here is a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that Keeley and Roy are together. To go up to someone and just say, "Oh, by the way, I still love you," is not a good thing to do ever, Jamie. Like, I know you're not the smartest man in most rooms, but no.
And to your point, Joe, this is his first real go around at being a true adult. He doesn't get timing. How could he? He's never known what nuance is.
Yeah. He's had a genuine emotional reaction and a proper thought. Yeah. But he's not on, this is neither the time nor place for this. Which is fair.
And she does not respond. And then immediately afterward, I'm talking about seconds, Roy comes up. I guess not having seen Jamie talking to her. And says, "Listen, I was a prick today making dumb fucking jokes. Death makes me uncomfortable because when my granddad died, I spent every single night for a whole year praying that I could just talk to him for once or see him just one more time like he was Obi-Wan Kenobi or some shit. And I got fuck all. But it did make me realize we only got this one life and I don't want to waste a second of it. I love you, Keeley." That was big too.
But again, like referring to the thing that happens a lot in this episode, it's that emotional 1-2 of here's a bit and then bam, here's another bit. And you're like, "Oh, I can't, the roller coaster." Yeah. I've also just found out as well, when Danny walks off, he mutters something in Spanish and it translates to "that woman is an angel," which is nice.
Nice. That's great. Oh, I love that. So we get a little interaction now. We're shifting gears to Rebecca and Sam. They have a little conversation. Sam is in, I guess, a closet of some sort and pulls her in.
Rebecca sees them talking. I think is it Sam and I think possibly
It's
Higgins.
Sam, Higgins, and Nora.
Nora stood next to him though, like a puppy, like looking up at it.
Yeah.
It's adorable. Like it's
great.
again just one of those little things of like, even though Rebecca's knocking him off, you know, I'll take a chance.
She tells him that he's kind and loving and wise, and he says, "Oh no, I hate big butts and I cannot lie." Great line.
I don't know whether he knows that's a song.
I don't know, because they were in the back of that car last episode, weren't they all rocking out to a tune?
Oh,
So-
possibly, yeah. It just seems
You're
like
right, though.
a weird place to put a joke when someone's gonna break. I don't know. I do it,
That's
yeah.
fair.
I
You
don't
can
know,
never
because
tell.
like throughout the whole thing, Sam's like weirdly like positive and upbeat about it.
Yeah. It's just me. I just had one of those things of like, it's a weird thing to say, but yeah.
He is young. I
Yeah.
have to remind myself that people I watch on TV are maybe not my age. So
This isn't made
he
for
is.
me.
He's a younger guy. She says she can't get past that he's wonderful because he could really hurt her. That's wisdom talking, kids. He points out she could really hurt him too. Also, that's some wisdom as well. He's not scared by it. She says, but I am, and I need to figure out why on my own. He tells her he understands to take as long as she needs. He warns her he's only going to get more wonderful.
That
Which
as
is-
well is a lovely thing. It's like, it's amicable.
Mhm.
Like, you can tell that Sam's upset by it, but he understands the reasoning behind it. And has said, well, the door's always open.
Yep.
When you figure out what it is, I'll still be here. And it's Sam is genuinely one of the loveliest people in this, because for a man that is supposed to be like 23, he's
24
wise
or
beyond his
something?
years.
Yeah.
Wise beyond his years.
Be like a Nigerian footballer, 23 though. So there's a long-standing joke where like there was a Nigerian footballer who I can't remember who it was either. He's posing that he was like 19, 20, and it came out that he was like 36.
Wow.
So now it's like, oh yeah, Nigerian footballer, you need to check his birth certificate
Check
to make
birth
sure he's actually the age he's saying he is. Because like a team had bought this player, and it was like, oh yeah, he's like a young up and coming player. I was like, actually, no, he's not.
Man, that's funny. That's crazy. That reminds me of a wrestling story, and I'll save it. It's not a big deal. So Zorro is leaving and tells Deborah and Rebecca that the food was amazing. I don't know where that came from.
Now,
Like, how do you say that at a funeral? And he thanks them both. Ted walks up and says, sorry for your loss, as everyone else has done. Deborah says, it's okay. You didn't kill him, did you? What? That was good. Ted says, I know I only got to meet Mr. Welton that one time, but well, the fact that a fellow his age could still do every move from Don O'Connor's big old dance scene from Singing in the Rain, it just gave me a lot of hope for getting older, The references come out of nowhere, don't they?
it's just such a weird thing to drop in that the only time Ted met Rebecca's dad, he decided to do the entire song and dance number from Singing in the Rain. It's like, how does that even happen?
How does it happen? Yeah, we never got to see that. Deborah says Paul
It would have
Paul
been
looked
a
too.
term
well-
for the children.
Oh,
Yeah, it could have been actually. Yeah,
interesting.
she says literally the two things he loved was like being the center of attention and what was the other one?
Making Rebecca laugh.
Making Rebecca laugh. So I'm assuming he would have engineered a situation at every available opportunity to do this routine. Like everyone's seen it a lot.
And Rebecca thanks Ted for reminding her of that, which is nice, which is probably why he did it.
Well, it's the reference back to him remembering his dad's happy memories and her being angry at her dad. But remember, he also did love you and made you laugh. Just because things ended the way they did. Don't forget the good times.
Sharon did that for Ted, so Ted did it for Rebecca. Brilliant. Ted and Sassy leave together, which is Ted gonna have some relations later, we assume.
She does like, what was it, injured birds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wounded birds, yeah. Rebecca watches Sam slowly getting back on the bus. He's crestfallen. Deborah instantly knows they're taking a break. So she's a mom. She can figure this out. We end this episode with Rebecca and Deborah in her old room looking at pics and watching videos of Rebecca in a big bowl of water using it as a swimming pool, which is great. And suddenly the Kitty video, the home movie, has changed to Rick Astley video.
I love the setup for that though, where like where like a mum like gets the tape out and goes, "Oh, I've not seen this," and then Rebecca instantly goes, "Oh, I taped over that years ago." And then it turns out she's taped over it with Rick Astley.
Which is, I'm assuming, a reference to like the Rick rolling thing as well.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You think you're going to get one thing, and then it's that goddamn song again.
Yeah, she says, "I think you had a bit of a thing for Rick Astley, Mother." Well, maybe I did. That's not him, is it? Yeah, of course it is. No, I thought he was black. That's Rick Astley? She says, yes. Everything's tied back together, guys.
I said, I don't think like they're 100% tight now, but explanations have been done, reasons are there, like bridges are being mended, and yeah, it's just a very fun, lovely way to end what is an incredibly sort of emotional and heartbreaking episode of Ted.
I think we've alluded to this through the entire run of this podcast so far, that by the end of this entire show, there's really only one character who's not in a better place and is not a better person. But it's that character's choice. That character is oblivious and will not change and does not think there's anything wrong at all. But every other character around him has recognized struggles and hardships and imperfections and things they've grieved over that's troubled them and have fought to become better people. So
the old mantra is you can only change if you want to change yourself.
That's it, yeah.
You can have all the tools and guidance at your disposal, but if you don't want it, it ain't happening.
You're right. And also, that's episode 10 in the can. What Joe just said and what I said. That's it. We're done. Bye. You're still here. You're still here? We'll have to wrap up the entire podcast with the Ferris Bueller ending. I think that would be lovely.
Just cut to black.
Yeah. Just cut to black and then...
Finn.
We can all three show back up with towels on our heads like we just got out of the shower. That'd be wonderful. You're still here? That's great. So, takeaways, guys. What do we think? Jay, let's start with you. Sum up episode 10 for me in your words.
I said to you guys earlier, this one's probably one of the hardest ones to watch. It's just a very, very melancholy episode. There's a lot of people kind of realizing people aren't what they expected them to be or what they thought they'd be. But I think it's really kind of got people on like the sort of like the track they need to be on to get to the end of the season, be it good or bad. Yeah, it's always really hard with like a show that's a comedy to kind of balance serious issues while still having the jokes. I think this, despite being a hard episode to watch, it does it really well. Because there's enough comic relief that you're not just sat there like crying your eyes out for the entire episode. But there is still, when it's serious, it knows it needs to be serious, and it doesn't throw in like a joke there just to try and like lighten the mood. It does an actual tonal shift. But yeah, it's, as I say, it's a really hard episode to watch, but it's you do come out feeling a little bit better at the end of it.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Everyone has been through a journey in this episode. Like, we find out why Rebecca's angry, we find out why Ted's angry, we find out why Roy is sort of the way he is. Like, everyone who matters has, and again, like you said before, as metaphors for life and stuff, it isn't always ups. Sometimes there are downs. Like, it's the jokes in it as well, like Jay said, are fit with the tone of the show overall, but also with the characters and just how they would behave. Danny Rojas's shoes is possibly like him coming off that bus is one of the funniest things. After, them saying that like the bit of they're all in shoes for me. They've come to they didn't have to be here. One season ago, they wouldn't have done. They'd all be off doing something else. But because they have this familial bond now, even if it causes them pain and discomfort, they're there for Rebecca. And yeah, it's an incredibly sad and difficult episode to watch, but you come out at the end of it going, well, okay, like they've grown and learned. Yeah, that's basically what Ted Lasso is about, becoming the better you.
Evolution of the characters. No one wants to read a book where the character is the same on page 1 as he is 500. You want to see the character go through, conflict and come out on the other end a changed person, whatever that change means. Exactly. The hero's journey. Well said. There you have it, kids. Episode 10 in the can. Thank you so much for tuning in, for checking us out. A friendly reminder, as always, boinkstudios.com, BOINK, boinkstudios.com. Find all the podcast links. We've got them there. We upload the show links to that website. We also have podcast links to Jay and Joe's shows as well, and to my other two. And guess what? We've only got 2 more, and season 2 is officially done. Then we're on to season 3, the third and final season, as of this moment, of the Ted Lasso universe. So
I just had another moment as well. Sorry. Over the credits that play, it is the song. What is it called? But it's by Margaret Drake, whose son was Nick Drake, a famous folk musician who suffered with depression and maybe committed suicide, maybe didn't commit suicide. We don't know. He went upstairs for a nap and fell asleep, possibly overdosing on his own medication. But afterwards, they like a lot of his family said that we never told him how much we loved him, and now we can't. And I think the choice of that song, particularly, again, nothing is not there for a reason. But the choice of that song as well, is particularly haunting and a beautiful song. If you really like sort of folk music, check out Margaret Drake or Nick Drake. But again, the similarities between the two are just, sorry. But yeah, I thought I recognized it. And then I was like, oh, yeah.
I remember reading that. That is not an accident. You're 100% right. That's why it was included. That is not an accident, for sure. Yeah, this show continues to amaze even after it's long over. So there you have it, kids. Episode 10 done and over with. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, check us out on the website. Continue to follow the show. We appreciate it. And do me a favor. Tell someone you know, if they like Ted Lasso, this is the podcast for them. Because I'm telling you, we do this with love. We try to pay attention to every detail. And I think we do a bang-up job. But I'm very biased. Thanks for tuning in, kids. We'll see you next time. For Jay and for Joe, I'm Tom. See you later, kids.